Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today. Extra amazing, I'll say. We've got two Supreme Court decisions that came down our way today. We're excited about it. We're going to go through it. Let me give you a quick preview on what's coming up, and then we'll zoom in for further detail. But we remember this judge, Judge James Boasberg, the judge that said Trump can't deport the Tren de Aragua gangbangers outside of the country under the Alien Enemies Act, and did some very finicky things with jurisdiction. Remember, there was a habeas claim in there, and he's like, hey, ixnay on the habeas claim, because he knew that he didn't have jurisdiction if there was a habeas claim there. Well, it turns out the Supreme Court came back down. We saw this yesterday while we were live. They published the opinion right in the middle of our show. Thanks a lot, Supreme Court. But it was a good one. We'll read through it and unpack what it means. But then the real question is, because the Supreme Court is handing this down to the lower level court, what is the lower level court Judge Jeb going to do? Jeb, exclamation. Yay. What's he going to do about it? Because he has not dismissed this case yet. In fact, he's scheduled it for another deadline by April 16th, as you see right here. And the question, of course, is if the Supreme Court just said, you don't have jurisdiction over this, what are you doing? Why do you still have this case going open here, Judge Boasberg? So we'll talk about it. We'll obviously go through that. We'll see what Trump filed, because he submitted a notice right after the Supreme Court decision came out last night. He's like, Judge, guess what just came down? We told you, you have no authority over this. You have no jurisdiction. And so they sent that back down to the judge, and we'll see what he does next. But we got a lot of reaction to this as well. Mike Johnson had something to say. We got Kristi Noem was out. We got Eric Schmidt asking questions about Judge Boasberg. And this question, I think, is a hat tip over to Julie Kelly, who's out there also reporting on these things. Shout out to her. We also got Pam Bondi came out. She answered some questions about this for about 5 minutes. We'll listen to that. And we got Stephen Miller, who is explaining that this is a total embarrassment for Judge Boasberg. You're telling me. So we'll go through that. And then today, we also had another case drop with this guy, Judge William Alsup. Now, this judge is a Bill Clinton appointee, and he's out in the Northern District of California. And he said that Trump cannot fire the government workers who are on probation, and said, hire them back, bring them back. Well, the Supreme Court came back down today. Now, we'll get some background on this. But Trump submitted an application to the Supreme Court, also submitted a reply as well. And we'll hit the highlights on these documents before we get to what the Supreme Court came back down and did today, which was a doozy. Because you'll notice in this one, we even have some libs who joined in on the majority. Only one lib is going to be joining with the majority. Sotomayor and Jackson said they would have denied this, but Judge Kagan, a Democrat, joined in the majority. Wow. So we'll talk about it. We got a bunch of good stuff coming up, two major decisions, more reaction here. We've got even CNN's like, oh crap, all of our friends are fired again. They're like, they just got hired. They just said that they were coming to our party. Now they said that they canceled it. Then they re-invited themselves, and now they canceled it again. So they're having a hard time. So they'll explain that. And Harry Enton was out from CNN too, saying, Trump is crushing it, just crushing it. Executive orders afoot, all sorts of good stuff. So a bunch of great things to get to today, my friends. And we're glad that you're here and with us. And members, we had a great members only stream. So just want to say, if you want to become a member, you can be a part of those too. We had a great members only stream this morning. We talked about tariff stuff. We talked about World War III, Iran, all sorts of fun stuff that we can't get to here. We'd love it if you joined us. We go live in the mornings, and it would be a great treat to have you come and join us. So come check it out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, or join on YouTube. Click the join button and check it out. We're doing some fun stuff there with the membos. All right, so now, my friends, without any further ado, let's get into the deep dive on the day. It was a good Membo stream today. Thank you, Don, for saying that. It was fun. We had a good time today. Yeah, endorsements. See? All right, so let's get to it because the Supreme Court is now here. The Supreme Court has spoken. Judge Boasberg blown out. He said, I have authority and jurisdiction to stick my nose over from the judiciary into Trump's executive branch and usurp the will of the American people right out from under us. Now the Supreme Court has said, wrong. That's not how this is happening. And we're excited to see it. Now, we got a 25-pager here, but the real question in response to this is what is the judge going to do? Because the Supreme Court has spoken, and as we'll see, they say that the judge doesn't have jurisdiction over this case anymore. But for some reason, this judge is still acting. And here is what he has actually now ordered, saying, if the ACLU gangbang lawyers who are representing the deported Tren de Aragua people, who actually weren't deported at all, the people who are a party to this lawsuit, who actually filed the lawsuit, are still in the country, the JGG and crew. But the judge, Judge James Boasberg, aka Jeb, he instituted a nationwide class action lawsuit certifying all the Tren de Aragua gangbangers who were issued under the proclamation by the president were now certified as a class. And they had a ton of rights now, like a class action lawsuit against Trump. So that was where the case was. But this judge, as you'll notice, the Supreme Court issued a decision, and for some strange reason, the case has not been dismissed yet, all of a sudden, and said, get out of here. The judge has actually said to the ACLU gangbangers, let me know if there's anything else I can possibly do for you here. And submit a response, and then I'll see what I can do. That's Judge Boasberg for you. But here is, we'll come back to that. Trump submitted a notice. He says, you really got no choice here to dump this case, so just do it. But here's what SCOTUS said. And the real question, of course, is what happens in this case, but beyond that, does this help to alleviate or curtail or stop any of the floods of similar injunctions or TROs that have been issued in multiple other jurisdictions? We'll see. But here is what the Supreme Court of the United States has said. Per curiam, this is an opinion of the court, came out late last night, says, all right, this matter concerns the detention and the removal of Venezuelan nationals believed to be members of Tren de Aragua that State Department, Rubio, and Trump have designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Now, the president issued a proclamation saying, we're invoking the Alien Enemies Act. We're removing people who are Tren de Aragua. So 5 detainees, which were the people who are the JGG folks, and a putative class, so in this case, it's the class action, right? He certified a whole gangbang group, sought injunctive relief. Now, initially, the court notes from the Supreme Court that they sought relief in habeas, okay? They filed a habeas claim, which is the right claim. But they dismissed that claim when Judge Boasberg was like, hey, if you file habeas, you got to be in Texas. Dummies are like, oh yeah, we don't want to be in Texas. We want to be in your court. He's like, well, then get rid of the habeas claim. They did. On March 15th, the district court issued 2 TROs stopping the removal of these people here and a class which consisted of all non-citizens in custody who were subject to the proclamation, a literal class action of gangbangers in America. Amazing. Judge Boasberg. Now, on March 28th, the district court extended the TROs for up to an additional 14 days. And as a refresher, this is Judge Boasberg, appointed by Barack Obama in 2011, has been on the bench for a long time, was a judge in the FISA court, was a judge in the alien removal court, oversaw grand jury investigations from the 2020 election, Yale, Oxford. Dude went to Oxford. Gosh. Born in San Francisco, Skull and Bones member with Brett Kavanaugh, was on the FISA court as well. And his wife runs or helped founded an abortion clinic. Also, this guy sentenced Ray Epps to probation and was upset that Ray Epps was hounded by people like us who wanted to know what his role was in rigging the January 6th, along with the rest of the government infiltrators. But that's the judge. So the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals denied Trump's motion and an appeal, and the government now is at the Supreme Court. Says, all right, the court, Supreme Court of the United States, well, All right, Judge Boasberg, we are granting Trump's application and we are vacating your TROs. Bye. Sorry, Judge. The detainees, the people who are subject to being deported, they seek equitable relief against the implementation of the proclamation and their removal under the AEA, right? This is the substance of their claim. What are they asking for? They challenge the government's interpretation of the act, and they assert that they don't fall within the category of removable alien enemies. But we're not even reaching those arguments, okay? So we're not even going to get to the bottom of that. So to be clear, this is not some sort of excuse for Trump that his interpretation of the AEA is vindicated or valid. They're specifically saying that. We're not there yet. But they say challenges to removal under the AEA, the Alien Enemies Act, a statute which largely, quote, precludes judicial review, must be brought in habeas, as we were screaming, weeks ago. They cite another case saying holding that habeas was the only cause of action available to challenge deportation under immigration statutes, and that it precluded judicial intervention beyond what was necessary to vindicate due process rights, right? And they do have due process rights in their removal proceedings, in their habeas petitions. They're not just rounded up and thrown out of airplanes. They get noticed, you're being deported, okay? Even in this case, they filed a lawsuit before the proclamation was even public. That's how much notice they had. They sued, the judge certified them as a class, so all of the crying about due process, they got plenty of it. And it's not saying that there's been a response, I think, even from some of them in the administration saying, well, like they don't deserve due process, or what about Lake and Riley's due process, or whatever. It's like, hey. These illegals who are in our country illegally are getting a ton of process. In fact, the Papusa guy from yesterday saw a judge and had it appealed. And then saw another judge. That's how much process he got. So regardless of whether the detainees formally request release, writes the Supreme Court, from confinement, because their claims for release necessarily imply the validity of their confinement, whatever, their claims fall within the core of a writ of habeas corpus, and so therefore it must be brought in habeas. And as we've talked about here before, they bring one type of claim, but they dress it up into something that it isn't. Everybody can see what it is. And so, for example, it's a contract claim. Perkins Coie, who hired the hacks Michael Sussman and Mark Elias, got their contract canceled via Trump's executive order. And they turned their contract cancellation into now a constitutional, free speech, First Amendment, freedom of association garbage. And the Democratic Party does this a lot. They say things are not what they are. Everyone can see what they are. You can't fool people, except in their own party. They're like, no. Yeah, no, it's a contract claim. Sitting across the dinner table, like, yeah, no, definitely a contract claim. No, for sure. Then they go after the dinner's over. They're like, she said she was a contract claim, but we could clearly see she wasn't, so you get the point. But it's an issue that they're into. Anyways, habeas is the right jurisdiction. They dressed it up as some sort of other violation of the Alien Enemies Act interpretation, due process, Fifth Amendment, all these other things. It's not right. Now, they're calling it what it is, and it's the same pattern, okay? If you got fired, go sue over here. Your contract canceled, go sue over there. You're held illegally, go sue over here. You can't forum shop and go to Boasberg and just get him in all the other friends of his in the DC district. And immediate physical release is not the only remedy under the law. For core habeas petitions, writes the Supreme Court, jurisdiction lies in only one district, the District of Confinement. Judge Boasberg knew this. The ACLU gangbang lawyers knew this. The District of Columbia Circuit Court of Appeals, they all knew it. They're all just ignoring this key part of the law to allow the injunction to stand because they're trying to insurrect the presidency via Article 3 courts. Now, the detainees are confined in Texas. So the Supreme Court, even Judge Kagan's like, I have to go with them on this one, says, so venue is proper in the District of Columbia. And so as a result, the government is likely to win. Judge Boasberg, you have no jurisdiction over this case. You never did. You knew you didn't. And then you said that order the planes to turn around. And then you held Trump in, or are about to hold Trump in contempt over that because it's rigged. Now, the detainees also sought equitable relief about summary removal. Now, although judicial review under the AEA is limited, we have held that an individual subject to detention and removal under that statute is entitled to judicial review as to questions of interpretation and constitutionality of the act, as well as whether he or she is an alien enemy 14 years of age or older. And that was back from the Ludke case, right? And so, and the point has always been there is some due process, but they're not entitled to have, a trial of jury members by their peers or something. They got due process. They got judges. They got appeals. They got a bunch of stuff. Trump gave them due process. What exactly? We don't know the details. Would maybe be nice to know. But they're saying we gave him plenty of due process. We're relying on prior orders too, and the status has changed, and they're gone. Under the proclamation, they say the term alien enemy is defined as all Venezuelans 14 years of age or older who are not lawfully here, says the SCOTUS. Now, the detainees' right against summary removal, however, are not in dispute. The government agrees. They do get judicial review. Yeah, in habeas, in Texas. Which should be the answer from Pam Bondi, from Tom Homan, from all the people who get asked about this. You're just like throwing them on airplanes and sending them out of the country. No. They get plenty of judicial review. And Papusa Boy saw 2 judges, lost the first one, appealed it, lost that one, then saw another judge and got some other sweetheart deal because of his papusas. And he's a citizen of El Salvador. He's not a citizen of the United States. He never had lawful status, and so he's back home in El Salvador. So he's a citizen there, so he can figure it. They can do what they want with their own citizens. It's their prerogative. Now, it is well established the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in the context of removal proceedings. And so the detainees are entitled to notice and opportunity to be heard about the appropriate nature of their case. And moreover, in this context, the detainees must receive notice after the date of this order that they are subject to removal under the act, right? And they got notice. Now, we don't know the details of the notice. And this is part of what Trump is doing. He's defending the tools and the tactics of the executive branch. He's saying, this is our prerogative. You don't get to tell us how to run our executive branch. We gave them due process under the law, and they're gone. But the judge, this is the court giving a little notice to Trump and the Trump administration. Now, that notice must be afforded with a reasonable time and in such a manner as will allow them to actually seek habeas relief in the proper venue before the removal occurs. So they'll probably just set some standard, 14 days. You're going to get removed in 7 days, 14 days, or else. Now, for all the rhetoric, writes the Supreme Court, of the dissents, the whiners, today's order and per curiam opinion confirms that the detainees subject to removal orders under the AEA are entitled to notice and an opportunity to challenge their removal, all of which they've gotten. Now, this is the process. This is the problem with the phrase due process, right? You can go to law school and still come out like, I don't really know what that is, because there's procedural due process and substantive due process. And then there's, it's kind of like scalable. So if you're a citizen, you get a little bit more. Then if you're not a citizen, you get a little bit less. And there's all sorts of, it's a complex area of the law. So then people just say due process, and it becomes this Rorschach term that is whatever anybody wants it to mean. And when you think of due process, generally think of, like a trial or beyond a reasonable doubt or these standards and all of these benefits that are afforded to citizens. And then I think on the left, I think that their interpretation of due process is that, essentially. And what they will say the right is doing is just rounding people up from their homes and their beds and just going in and just saying, oh, Tom Homan's like, tattoo, get him. And that's the due process. Then you're on an airplane and out of America. That has never been the position at all. They're getting processed, all right. They're not getting a red carpet rolled out for them and little heated towelettes and blankets that they can pat their face with on their deportation flights. and also a lawyer. Like they want like lawyers provided for them. Like to be fair, like some of that is jokey, but there's a contingent of the Democratic Party that says, what? They can't afford a lawyer. They can't, if they get rounded up, we got to hire them a lawyer for their habeas petition and provide them counsel and all of these other things, right? Just like you would expect for a citizen. And you start to ask yourself, what? But they're not citizens. So why would they get the same benefits? If they've got a complaint against the United States, we don't have to detain them necessarily once they're deported, but their home countries can take them and they can make their claims from their home countries, but they don't have to be here. So the only question, but anyways, the court is saying, hey, dissenters, relax, okay? Lunatics, liberals, even Kagan is saying this. They're getting notice. They got notice. They got an opportunity to challenge their removal. Even in this lawsuit, they sued before the proclamation was made public. So they had to have gotten notice. By virtue of the fact that the lawsuit exists, we know they did. So what are they crying about? And they filed, if they were being detained in Texas, they filed in DC. So they had like plenty of time. Wasn't even, they're like, call a Texas lawyer and get down to the courthouse tomorrow. They're like, no, well, we don't want to file in Texas because Texas is going to say, no, these guys are gone based on habeas and it's going to look really bad for us. So we'd rather just go find some DC lawyers, rather the ACLU gangbangers are just popping out of their gutters, racing into the courthouse, into Judge Boasberg's courtroom. So the court continues, they say, so for the reasons set forth, we hold that venue lies in the district of confinement, which is Texas. The dissents from the two libs would have the court delay resolving that issue, requiring that given our decision today, that the process begin anew down the road. Now, we see no benefit in such a wasteful delay, and so the application to vacate the orders of Judge Boasberg that came up through John Roberts and referred to him are granted. The application is granted. So your orders, your TROs, Judge Boasberg, just got AFUERA right out of the courthouse. So the March 15th, 2025 minute orders granting TROs on two dates, the March 15th and March 28th, the extension and the original TRO are hereby vacated. It is so ordered, signed by a per curiam opinion of the Supreme Court, which is an opinion of the court. Now, nice decision there. Now, again, it's a big victory for Trump because this has been Trump's opinion the whole time, right? The legal argument, much in disagreement with what the media is reporting Trump's argument is that they've always had process. If they want to complain, file habeas, they're allowed to do that. It's in Texas, but they got plenty of process. And now the orders must be vacated. So Trump can pick back up and continue to deport these people based on the original proclamation, right? This judge that and his class action certification and that whole TRO, they're now gone. But what the judge has done is not ultimately dismiss the lawsuit. Okay, he said, well, I kind of still have jurisdiction, right? The Supreme Court said their claim that they just brought is a habeas claim. A habeas claim is about a person's detention. All of their claims are that. So you don't have jurisdiction for that. It needs to go to Texas. So this judge, in what may be interpreted as a direct violation of a Supreme Court order, you can interpret it, said, we just read what the Supreme Court said. In yesterday's ruling vacating the court's TRO, this is Judge Boasberg writing, the Supreme Court held that the plaintiffs cannot be deported under the Alien Enemies Act without an opportunity to challenge their removal in federal court. So you see what the judges did. This is how perverted this judge is. We just read the order, okay? Judge, your TROs are invalid. And they're both vacated. Your original and the extension are gone. So get rid of them. And you have no jurisdiction over this. Their detention claims, those happen in Texas. So this judge then snips out the best part of the opinion. He says, aha, I was right. They said just what I said. They have to have an opportunity to challenge their removal in federal court, which they did. They had that based on the fact that we're, in federal court. Shocking, I know. Even before the Supreme Court even came out and said that. They did it. They sued in your courtroom, Judge Boasberg, and you were just like, I guess, waking up at like 1:30 in the morning or something, waiting for this case to get filed. You get caught at 7:30 in the morning. Hey, I'll take it. So they just said you've got no jurisdiction. And he perverts it, says, see, they do get due process. Okay. He says it is also determined that the appropriate proceedings venue is in the Southern District of Texas. Actually, that was kind of the main holding, Judge. You kind of inverted those. So this court accordingly orders Boasberg, 1, that today's preliminary injunction hearing that was scheduled for today is vacated, and that the ACLU gangbanger lawyers shall file notice by April 16th, indicating whether they believe that they still have a basis to proceed on their motion, and if so, propose another briefing schedule. What? Are we in bizarro land? We just heard from the judge, from the Supreme Court, that these were habeas claims. They even brought a habeas claim in their original filings, and now they don't have jurisdiction over the meat of their claim. And now this judge is saying, well, what do you guys think? Do you have jurisdiction? Are there any other claims that you have? He's basically given them an opportunity to say, well, this is a constitutional claim. This is not a habeas claim. This is an equitable remedy that you can. It's ridiculous. This judge just got told and is keeping it alive by perverting it, right? It's a judicial insurrection happening by Judge Boasberg, who is embedded in an ultra-liberal family. But anyways, let's continue on. As you can see, Judge Kavanaugh, with whom Judge Boasberg went to law school, but Kavanaugh rules against him here, concurring with the per curiam opinion. He says, now I agree with the per curiam opinion here. Importantly, as this court stresses, the court's disagreement with the dissenters is not whether the detainees receive judicial review of their transfers. In fact, all 9 members of the court agree that judicial review is available. Yeah, we've always said that. Hello. The only question is where that judicial review should occur. Now, that question on venue turns on whether these transfer claims belong in habeas proceedings or may be brought under the APA. Now, I agree with the court. Must be habeas. Now, I add only that the use of habeas for transfer claims is not novel. We do this all the time. In extradition, we did it here, Obama cases, Ludke, and more. And so there's a lot of history and precedent of using this, and especially using habeas claims to review transfer claims, right? When somebody's literally being transferred from here to another location. A bunch of other cases did it, so we've done it before. Habeas can handle those. And you can't sue under the APA when there was another adequate remedy in another court. And that's in the habeas courts in Texas. So go over there and get it from Judge Kavanaugh. Now, the dissenters here, and Amy Coney Barrett joins in as to some of these components. So we've got Sotomayor. Actually, this was not a 7. Did I say 7-2? I don't think that was an incorrect errata. My mistake. So this is kind of a split decision, right? Because we got Justice Kagan, Jackson join, the 3 of them, and Barrett is joining as to 2 of them, but leaving off the other 2. So you can see we've got 3 judges here, and the per curiam is the other component. So this would be a 5-4 decision based on the numbers we see here. So my mistake if I misspoke on that. I think I was thinking about the second segment, which is in California. So my mistake. So it looks like 5-4. Now, 3 weeks ago, the federal government started sending scores, this is the dissent, of Venezuelan immigrants, not nearly enough, detained in the United States to a foreign prison in El Salvador. And here you go. It did so without any due process of law. It's just not true. Under the auspices of so-and-so, right? The majority says there was plenty of due process. And now the district court put a pause on this, but the majority thinks it's fine. But even the majority agrees, and the federal government now admits that they are subject to judicial review, right? Everybody's agreed to that always. So the court's legal conclusion is suspect. They say the court intervenes anyway, and it doesn't even mention the grave harm that the erroneously removed El Salvadorians are going to face. Got it. All right, so Amy Coney Barrett joined in parts 2 and 3B. Let's see what some of these are. They write, this case arises out of the Alien Enemies Act. Trump said it's coming in place, and James Madison said this is a big disgrace and a bunch of stuff. Now, to that end, the act grants the president the power to detain people. It's only been used 3 times, they say. War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. But then that changed. Trump came in, and he invoked it and used it against Tren de Aragua, issued a proclamation and more findings. Now, suspecting that the president had covertly signed a proclamation somehow, I guess they just guessed it, several lawyers anticipated their client's imminent deportation and filed a class action lawsuit. Kind of. I mean, the judge certified them as a class of gangbangers. But it sounds like they got plenty of notice. So it sounds like the judges are admitting there's notice here. Now, they contested that Tren de Aragua had committed a type of invasion and said, we didn't do these things. So then in the early morning, right, the lawyers sue. The district court informed the government of the lawsuit, scheduled a hearing. Judge Boasberg got the case, popped out of nowhere, and issued an TRO. The government, they thought, was to rush this through. They say JGG, for example, had no chance to tell his court that the tattoos causing DHS were to suspect him as a gang member were unrelated to a gang. He said, he says, no, I'm a tattoo artist who got an eye tattoo because he saw it on Google and thought it looked cool. So that's his excuse, you know. We needed time to get so he could explain that to a judge. And then some hack judge would say, it is cool. Yeah, it is cool, JGG. You should stay in this country. GFF was also denied the chance to inform a court that the government thought he was Tren de Aragua solely on the presence of strangers because some friend said he was part of them. Now, again, just to be clear, like these people are not being charged with crimes, but they are being deported from the country, and they're not lawful residents. They're not lawful aliens. They're not citizens. So they shouldn't be in the country anyways. Now they're just saying, well, they need an opportunity to challenge their designation as a gang member and deport them, out of the country. Now, recognizing the emergency that the government had created by deporting them, then the judge issued a TRO, and ordered the plane to get turned around. The court set an emergency hearing, and despite this, they continued to load up the planes. Now, this is going to come back down. This judge is not letting go of this case, obviously. So he said, guys, come on back and let me know if you can keep this case going, even though the Supreme Court said you have no jurisdiction at all. This is what it's going to come down to. It's the impeachment and contempt trap. Not until an hour before the hearing did the website finally have the proclamation published. So then at 5 p.m., the judge certified the gang members as a class and said, you can't deport any of these people. Concerns about their compliance began to emerge. The district court, for its part, has surmised that the government knew about the order but was evading the judge's order and kept deporting these people out of the country. Now, this prison is going to cause a lot of harm. CCOT, the record reflects that inmates are highly likely to face life-threatening harm. The liberal judges and Amy Coney Barrett are freaked about that. Says CCOT detainees are frequently denied communication with lawyers, saying they'll never leave. You've seen it. It's a brutal prison, no doubt. What if the government later determines that it sent one of these detainees there in error? Or the court decides the president lacked authority. The government takes the position that even if a mistake is made, they can't get this person back. We saw that with Papusa guy. Now, the implication of the government's position is that, well, he was an El Salvadorian, so then he can go through El Salvador's government with Nayib and figure it out. But he's not an American, and he's not lawfully in our country. So he's now in El Salvador, back in his homeland, and they can deal with it. The implications of the government's position is not Like, why doesn't El Salvador give him due process? He's an El Salvadorian citizen. Why don't the Venezuelans who are upset about going to Venezuela complain to their government? They can give them all the due process in the world. They're not lawfully here. The implication of the government's position is that not only non-citizens, but also U.S. citizens could be taken off the street. And this is a lawless type of regime and more. All right, so to begin with, they say all 9 members agree. The court order dictates today that they're entitled to judicial review, right? And that can come in the form of many different ways. Like you call them administrative law judges, immigration judges. Somebody just saying, yeah, no, that was great. We saw that with Papusa Boy. Therefore, under today's order, courts below will probe the meaning of invasion or predatory incursion and so on. And so today we agree that the Fifth Amendment requires notice and more. And it sounds like Amy Coney Barrett is agreeing with some of that. Now, against the backdrop, the U.S. government's unprecedented deportation is occurring, even though it's without due process. The reason apparently is that the majority thinks Trump's claims should have been styled as habeas actions, right? Is what the majority said. But here, all they did was issue a 14-day halt on the deportations. And so by vacating this, you're allowing these deportations to continue, and the dissent continues, saying there is reason to say that this is not a habeas relief and that maybe it is another claim that could survive under the APA. And so they're going to give them another shot. It continues, and we'll see where it wraps up. The government's conduct poses an extraordinary threat to the rule of law. There you go. All right, so what you'd expect. That a majority of this court now rewards the government for its behavior is indefensible. We as a nation in a court of law should be better than this. I respectfully dissent. All right, so Jackson also dissented, and that's fine. So Trump got the actual majority order and sent this back into Judge Boasberg before Boasberg said, well, I'm going to keep this case alive. They sent to the judge, they wrote, all right, Trump respectfully provides notice that the Supreme Court issued a decision today in Trump versus JGG, and it vacated your temporary restraining orders. Now, as the Supreme Court made clear, the ACLU gangbanger lawyer claims must be brought through a petition for a writ of habeas corpus in the respective districts of each individual plaintiff's confinement. So no class action, and they can sue on their own, one at a time. So the detainees are in Texas, so this case should be brought is in Texas. DC is not appropriate. So this court, writes Trump, therefore lacked authority to enter and to extend the temporary restraining orders. And so based on the Supreme Court's decision, the ACLU's motion for a preliminary injunction should be denied. And this case should be dismissed because you don't have jurisdiction. You have no power here. Now, furthermore, says Trump, the Supreme Court decision also eliminates the basis for this court's order to show cause, which should therefore be dissolved as well. Signed by Trump's DOJ from Drew Ensign. And remember, this is the case where Trump got called down to the principal's office because the judge said, well, those planes should have literally turned around in midair and brought the Tren members back to America, and didn't, and said, I want to know who made the decision, who was on the phone with the pilot, who was having conversations, and so on, and wanted information. Trump invoked the state secret doctrine and more. So Trump just told this judge, no, you're done. Okay, there's nothing else for you to do. This judge got that and said, you're wrong, Trump, and sent to the ACLU and the gangbangers, let me know by April 16th if there's anything I can do to keep this case alive and well. So that's Judge Boasberg, of course. We know who he is. This judge right here, who's got a long history of being anti-Trump, is now reversed by the Supreme Court. His TROs vacated. And Trump wins. If they want to complain about it, they can go sue in Texas, file their habeas petitions there, and we'll have a separate battle there, by the way. Okay, there's going to be a ton of immigration judges down there that just say, oh, pupusas, yeah, because we saw that already once before. Judge bought it. The pupusa boy got a withholding of removal because of his sob story. So get ready for that. Now, the benefit, obviously, is that they're not going to be these massive class actions and nationwide injunctions in a forum that is very far removed from any of the consequences of illegal immigration or gangbangers roaming our streets. But Judge Boasberg loses that one, and people are celebrating all across the plains. As you can see, Mike Johnson, celebrating the SCOTUS verdict, came out and said, "We're making America safe again." Responding to Pam Bondi, who said, "Breaking, the Supreme Court sides with the Trump administration on the Alien Enemies Act," saying, "Tonight's decision is a landmark victory for the rule of law. An activist judge in Washington, D.C., does not have the jurisdiction to seize control of Trump's authority to conduct foreign policy and keep the people of America safe." And so the DOJ will continue fighting in court to make America safe again. So Johnson said, yep, tonight SCOTUS ruled that the Trump administration vacating the stays that prevented deportation is now gone. The decision is a victory for the rule of law and allows Trump to continue to protect Americans. So that's from Johnson. We also had Kristi Noem celebrating this. She posted saying, "President Trump was proven right once again. SCOTUS confirms our commander-in-chief has the power to stop the invasion of our country by terrorists using his wartime powers," saying, "Leave now or we will arrest you, lock you up, and deport you, and then she's going to come watch you outside your prison cell."
Today is a bad day to be a terrorist in the United States of America. Today, the Supreme Court came out with a decision that reaffirmed President Trump was correct in using his authority on using the Alien Enemies Act to deport terrorists out of this country. Thank you, President Trump, for your leadership in making America safe.
All right, so Kristi Noem explaining what's going on and thanking the president for getting it done. Now, we also saw this. Eric Schmidt, who is now a senator, was on with Fox, and he was responding to this comment about Judge Boasberg getting assigned this case very strangely. And Julie Kelly posted about this over the weekend, got her hands on the transcript, kind of read through it, and it feels very sneaky. The judge was like, "Oh, no, I was just, I just happened to be checking my phone randomly, and I saw the case came in, and I just thought, since no one's available, I guess I can launch on this one." It turned out to be this really important case. Like, okay, Judge, no one believes it for a minute. So Eric Schmidt and others are making that comment saying this judge feels like he's trying to talk his way out of it. Here's what the senator said.
Judge Boasberg, over the weekend, it came out, he's not the emergency judge in D.C. He inserted himself in that role. He was on vacation. The case was filed at 2:30 in the morning. Somehow he ended up with that case. He wasn't the emergency judge on duty. So I think this requires further investigation and legislation.
So let me get that straight, because I'll quote you on that, because that is news to me and maybe a lot of other people too. If he wasn't the emergency judge who would naturally matriculate into that position on this, he just gets to pick himself and say, well, I'm the favorite. Let me go do this case against Trump.
He's the chief judge, and he inserted himself. That doesn't happen. The emergency judges 100% of the time get those cases. So he could have been tipped off that this was going to be filed, and while on vacation, he took the case. So again, this speaks to, I think, the very aggressive, unusual, and unprecedented measures that these activist judges are taking to insert themselves. Ultimately, they're not going to be right. The Supreme Court's going to slap them down. But the Judicial Conference, Chief Justice Roberts ought to look at this, and we also, the Article 1 branch, I intend to file legislation to make sure this randomness, which is supposed to happen when these cases are assigned, actually happens. We need more transparency, because right now, people don't think it's random at all.
So what I think you are getting at is the politics that potentially are being played, where a judge who may feel a certain way politically may step up against Trump at this point. So it fits right in with a brand new opinion piece titled, "America Has a Robed Politician Problem," arguing that the left, unable to secure their agenda at the ballot box, has turned to national injunctions as a weapon to engineer outcomes they could not achieve democratically. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is really the fundamental difference between a conservative justice and a liberal activist judge. The conservative will view the law as it's written, not how they want it to be. But the liberals, for a very long time in this country, they had control of the Supreme Court. They just made up things. They made up rights that didn't exist to get to a political outcome. Now that you have a more conservative court, they're desperate. They're not in power in Congress anymore. And so I think a lot of these judges are taking it upon themselves to usurp really important power. For example, when President Trump declared a predatory incursion of these criminal violent gangs, he's well within his Article 2 executive power to deport them. He can do that. The judge, by stepping in there, Judge Boasberg, by stepping in the case that we're talking about, he somehow got, said you can't do that. That is like that judge dictating missile strikes or deciding troop movements.
Yep.
Those are national security issues. Those are those are powers of the commander in chief that the judge doesn't get to do. So the separation of powers works both ways. You don't get to kind of jump into the Article 2 branch's authority on commander in chief powers. So I think you're about to see all these cases make their way to the Supreme Court, and I think President Trump's on very firm ground. But we should address these abuses that are happening now every day.
We should. Congress should do something about it, even if it is just something symbolic to rub the noses of the bad judges in the history books to say, look, you got hauled in front of Congress for testimony or subpoenaed, or we held impeachment inquiries, or there was a vote even on an impeachment resolution. Like, just get a vote on it. And we'll see if their attitudes start to change a little bit. Now, obviously, a lot of them are purely partisan actors at this point, so they may not care about it. But he's right. The judges are acting as though they are presidents, and they are not the president, so they should not be doing that. Now, meanwhile, Pam Bondi was out hitting the media, explaining what is happening now that the Supreme Court has ruled against the ACLU gangbang lawyers and have said Trump can continue with his deportations.
Garcia was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. I know the Supreme Court just issued that stay, deciding whether he should be sent back to the United States. Why does the Justice Department believe that he should?
Well, first of all, it was an administrative error as to why he was deported. And he is a known gang member. ICE testified he was a gang member, and we believe he should stay where he is. You know, the defense had argued that he was a journeyman, that he was training to be an electrician. Well, the last gang member we arrested, who was a violent murderer, was also hanging wallpaper in a place called the Villages in Florida, one of the biggest retirement places in our country. So these people are living among us. One of the big cases we had, I think you're very aware of, half an hour from where we're standing, was another violent gang member living right among us in a very, very nice residential neighborhood. Wreaths on the door next door to him, children's bicycles. So that's what these gangs do. They infiltrate our country and they live among us. So to say that he was training to be an electrician does not legitimize him from being a violent gang member. And we will continue to fight for the safety of Americans and get these people out of our country to make America safe. Every victim of crime deserves to be safe. And these families who have lost loved ones to these, they are foreign adversaries, they are terrorists, and they are living among us no longer. And especially after that ruling yesterday, they better start self-deporting because we're coming after them.
Two quick questions, if we can, on this. Ask you about the ruling yesterday from the Supreme Court. Obviously, it allows you to move forward with using the Alien Enemies Act to deport these alleged gang members and others here. It says they're entitled to due process, though, as well. Your take on the ruling and what does it mean for your ability to deport?
What is due process?
Peter, what the ruling says is, as from yesterday forward, what we can do is we can still deport, but they are entitled to habeas in the court of confinement, which means all of these cases will go through Texas. There will be no more class actions. It will be two questions asked. Do you qualify under Alien Enemies, and are you a violent gang member? Are you a member of TDA? That's what will be asked.
Let me ask you about the DHS. The administration broadly has revoked the legal status of those individuals who came in from south of the border through the CBP app that was produced by the former administration. So those individuals who follow the rules as they existed at the time be forced to leave the country now?
Well, Peter, the rules at the time weren't fair. The rules were dangerous to Americans. I went to the border in September. I was in Yuma, Arizona, and I saw piles and piles of driver's license, IDs, passports from every country you can imagine thrown at the gate. They were handed cell phones, the CBP app, what you were discussing. They could come in, get on a phone, enter the country. If they didn't have ID, then they could identify that they were from any country they chose to be from. A Border Patrol agent told me Venezuelan men were coming in saying they were from China. Chinese people were coming in saying they were from any country, Ireland, any country they wanted to identify that they were from, and they were walking right into our country. So we have to look at all those cases because that's the safety and concern for our citizens. One other thing at the border is if you were a family, it made it much easier to come into the country. I learned a new term while I was at that border, and that was called a disposable child. Border Patrol agents were seeing children, the same child, coming in time and time again, a little boy they recognized over and over coming into our country, and they couldn't figure out why. That child had been trafficked, and he was posing as a family member. They had kidnapped a child, and when they recognized him multiple times, they realized he wasn't part of that family. So what was happening at that border was dangerous. I went to a rape crisis center. Nothing at that border was humane, and nothing protected American citizens, nor many of the people coming through it, because I firmly believe many of those women and children were trafficked.
Attorney General, 60 Minutes found that 75% of the immigrants who were sent to El Salvador do not have public criminal records. Is that true?
Do you mean in our country?
The Venezuelan migrants who were sent to...
Okay, well, they're not Venezuelan migrants. They're illegal aliens from Venezuela who should not have been in our country, who are committing the most violent crimes. So if you committed a murder in our country, we're going to keep you here, and we're going to seek the death penalty, and we're going to keep you in prison because our victims' families deserve that. But we don't have to charge them with every crime. We can deport them and get them out of our country and save room in our prisons because they should have never been in our country to begin with.
So you confirm they didn't commit a crime, right? Is that what you're...
Yeah, it's like you could only deport people if they came in here and committed a crime by virtue of the fact that they're here without lawful status, even like Biden's lawful status. Biden had like everybody can come in no matter what. You got asylum, whatever. Right? Just say you're here because pupusas, whatever, you're good. Judge like, yeah, pupusas. And everybody comes in. And you can only be deported if you're some violent criminal or something like that? No, the answer is no. If you're here illegally, you are here illegally. You have broken the law. You are now deported. You're lucky that you're not being held in jail and charged with crimes for that. But you can go back to your home country, and if you want, so you know, you get the due process that's afforded with being detained and being processed through the removal process. But anything else is above and beyond. And if they want more due process, well, they can go complain about it in their home countries and take it up with them. So that was Pam. We also had Stephen Miller was out explaining his take and just how absolutely devastating this was for Judge Boasberg.
This was a huge, a monumental victory for President Trump. The biggest legal win of this administration so far. A total embarrassment for crazy Judge Boasberg, who's been trying to force this president to bring foreign alien terrorists back onto American soil, trying to turn our planes around, trying to empty prisons in foreign countries and bring them back to our soil. This is a monumental, colossal victory for the rule of law, for the Constitution, for our founding generation, John Adams, who signed this law into effect in 1798, and for President Trump in fulfilling his mandate and campaign pledge. What does this mean for you and your family watching at home tonight? It means that the Department of Justice, FBI, DEA, ATF, the U.S. Marshal Service, Customs and Border Protection, Border Patrol, and Immigrations and Customs Enforcement now have maximum authority to find and remove illegal alien gang members from Venezuela that have been responsible for so much misery in this country, for the torture and murder of Jocelyn Nungary, for the brutal slaying of Laken Riley. Those monsters can now be hunted down and expelled from this country with speed, force, and efficiency. This is a great day for America, Sean.
Yes, it is there, Stephen. And thank you for delivering that message with some vigor and some poise. We appreciate that. So it was a big day. Judge Boasberg blown out. And this saga will continue, no doubt about it. So now their complaints will be filed in Texas. There will be more lawsuits coming. I think the ACLU is already typing up one right now as we speak. They're all like, oh, our gang members are under attack. Let's help. So we'll keep our eye on it, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do, and we'll see you back here on the next one. But we're not done yet, so don't go anywhere, because we've got another Supreme Court ruling that came out today, and this one, my mistake, I think was the 7-2 one, and so my apologies on that. Here is what this one looks like. Yeah, this is the 7-2 one. All right, so let's get into this Supreme Court ruling now. We've got more stuff from SCOTUS and another victory for the president. Trump wins again, and so does America. The Supreme Court has spoken in this case that was originally in Judge Alsup's courtroom. Judge Alsup is this fellow right here, who comes from the Northern District of California, a judge appointed by Bill Clinton. He has a long history of going against Trump. The last battle that this judge had with Trump was about DACA in Trump's first term, and this judge actually won. When the case went up to the Supreme Court during the first term, the Supreme Court came back down and said, yeah, Trump can't get rid of DACA because of all of the due process violations that might be imposed upon the DACA recipients. And so this guy's been around for a while, had a major battle back during the first time, but he lost this one, as we're going to find out. He went to Harvard Law School. We have the clown emoji for those people. And we know he was appointed by Bill Clinton. Also a rancher out there in the Sierra Nevadas, and had a long history with Trump the first time. In fact, there was a whole Supreme Court ruling that came back down in the case of Regents of the University of California versus Homeland. And you can look that case right up on Wikipedia. And it was a 5-4 vote, but it came against Trump the first time around, right? So this judge has been around for a while. And Trump came in, he was going to end it. We had a whole series of lawsuits back then. Now, we weren't live streaming watching the Watchers back then, because we were kind of birthed out of COVID. But in 2017 and 2018, Judge Alsup issued an injunction from Alsup, said you can't change anything, right? So it's like deja vu. We've already seen this. So Homeland then went to Supreme Court during Trump's first term. They accepted the docket, accepted a bunch of other cases that came out from all of the other districts, and they said Trump can't rescind DACA, and said there needs to be due process there, right? So this judge is like riding high. He's like, I beat Trump the last time I went to the Supreme Court. So this time around, this judge is Judge William Alsup. You can see he went to Harvard, was appointed by Bill Clinton, age 79, senior status right now. So he has a lighter caseload, but still active, obviously. Has now gotten this case, and he just got told by the Supreme Court of the United States. So we'll come back and see what the Supreme Court said. Very short filing here that slapped this case back down out of his hands. But why are we here is the question. Remember, the Supreme Court got this case when Trump appealed it and asked them to stay the injunction from Judge Alsup. They said, hey, SCOTUS, they were being sued by the unions, remember the unions, the AFL-CIO, and the reason being, really, the unions were representing the employees, because if the employees sue, okay, these were fired probationary workers. If the probationary workers sue, then the response is, you can't sue here in this court. You have to go file a claim with the labor board. So the unions are suing, saying that they've got organizational standing to be here because they're representing their union members who are being injured by their firings, and the unions are being injured in the firings because they skim off of the paychecks for the government workers, right? They grift off a certain percentage, just like you have income tax withholding, the unions are skimming off too. So if the probationary workers are fired, they're not a part of the union, they're not getting paid, and the unions can't skim off the top. So now they are harmed. Oh no, we have irreparable injuries now. So we have standing and we can sue in California. They did. So they ended up in Judge Alsup's court, And then this was the application to the Supreme Court that we just got a ruling on today. So let me just show you what's going on in here. They say, Your Honor, at the Supreme Court, all 9 of you, said the district judge in this case, Judge William Alsup, spontaneously issued a preliminary injunction that ordered a half dozen departments and agencies to immediately offer reinstatement to 16,000 probationary employees who had been terminated. And they did so in a lawsuit that wasn't filed by the employees. Like they got fired, but they weren't sued. They weren't suing. It was a group of nonprofits, the so-called unions, who claimed that these layoffs could contribute to downstream harms because of less government services. And the court issued a sweeping relief and enjoined Trump. Now, the court's injunction, thus, it lets third parties hijack the employment relationship. If the administration wants to fire people, they can. And now what you can have is some third party suing somebody saying, if you fire those people, my line at this service is going to be longer. And so therefore, you can't do that. We're in charge. And like many other orders, the court's extraordinary reinstatement violates the separation of powers, and the court should stop the assault. So that was what the application looked like. But let me show you what the final reply was from the president's team, because this is the last thing that hit the docket before, the main thing that hit the docket before the Supreme Court ruled. They said the following. They said, all right, listen, judges, the district court granted this injunction to force us to hire all of these 16,000 people back. Why? Because some members might benefit from some unspecified fraction of those employees' tasks that aren't getting done. And we remember these, like, quote, disaster relief, performing natural resource monitoring, and protecting recreational fishing activities, right? Those are the harms such that Trump can't fire these people. Trump says the federal government must immediately, right now, according to the judge, until SCOTUS acted, reemploy all of those workers, despite our judgment about what best runs our agencies. And the agencies would apparently subvert the order if they decide to assign probationary employees to different tasks. So we're ordered to hire them back. And if we say, okay, guess what? Now you are cleaning toilets, says we have no use for you, we can't do that either. So they have to go back to their original jobs. They say, Supreme Court, courts don't have license to block federal workplace reforms at the behest of anyone who wishes to retain particular levels of government services. Now, the injunction in this case plainly exceeded the court's authority. Judge Alsup. The court should have dismissed the lawsuit on standing grounds. Their asserted harms were speculative. They're far downstream consequences for these employees, like my line might be longer. But Article 3, the Constitution, requires them to identify concrete injuries traceable to specific bad actions. And so the court should also have dismissed this suit for trying to circumvent the exclusive process that Congress has prescribed for these types of lawsuits. If you are a fired person, you should sue under the law. The Civil Service Reform Act says you sue over there. Traditional authority would not allow these reinstatements here, what this judge did. They can't bring back 16,000 probationary employees and force them back in. This is going to harm the fragile ecosystem here, and it can't be allowed. Now, if this suit was allowed to proceed, Supreme Court, the process that Congress actually prescribed for challenging employee firings, like if you get fired as an employee, would be superfluous. Congress set up an entire system for lawsuits here, and they're not even following them. Nonprofits could leapfrog that process, sue anywhere their members use federal services, and this court should not invite a new wave of litigation that enables that. Now, there are multiple threshold barriers here, but we're going to win. Here's why. Standing jurisdiction and limits of relief should have precluded anything even remotely resembling the injunction from the judge. On the merits, but nonprofits cannot wield longer bathroom wait times, here you go, at national parks to obtain review of thousands of employment firings, okay? So just because that one dude we were making fun of the last time we read one of the original applications, he was saying, you know, the bathroom was closed and he had to take a doo-doo that day. Bad. They say nonprofit organizations cannot establish standing here as to whether 16,000 people were fired properly, with some scattershot speculation about how this might impair a small subset of services. Now, as to the claims involving the VA and the DOD, they relied on some bizarre theory of organizational standing, but that has been rejected by the Supreme Court. So he's basing his jurisdiction, his authority to hear this case on something the Supreme Court has already said is invalid. They say, but they will divert so many resources. It's not like that. It's one dude who's out at a bathroom line. It's so many that it's going to be a ton of dudes at a bathroom line, that everyone's going to be pooping their pantalones out there on the side of the hills, and we're going to have a real crisis on our hands because no one's going to be able to poop anymore. So as to other agencies, respondents' other theory of standing, that they want to use federal services, it also doesn't give them standing here. They complain, they say terminating thousands of employees will translate into service disruptions. And they say our anecdotal evidence is voluminous. But they say there is no specific injury of what's going to happen and where. They say, oh, it could be disaster relief, all right? Or loan guarantees could be a harm. Or it could be damage to sensitive ecological areas within the national parks. It could be a bunch of things. But there are no allegations of anything specific. It's all about future injury. They provided declarations about a lack of Forest Service oversight of cattle grazing. Oh no, John Dutton's in trouble. And asserting that the Department of Ag and grant programs for small businesses may be less efficient if federal employees who support grantees are terminated. But these aren't concrete injuries. A lack of oversight, what's the harm there? Oversight of what? Less efficient, how is that a harm? Those aren't concrete injuries. They have no jurisdiction here. So they also tried to sidestep this. Each of their injuries is highly speculative, and it is an attenuated chain of causal inferences. Now they speculate. They say reinstating probationary employees might result in their resuming the same tasks. But even if they resume, will those diminished services be injuries? And that doesn't justify the reinstatement of all 16,000 people. So, okay, so let's say the one injury is the bathroom at the national park. It was closed. Okay, so like bring back the bathroom guy if you think that was a harm. So we fired 16,000 people. Now we'll bring back one. So it's 15,999. They're all fired. Not all 16,000 because the bathroom's bad. So like, how about the response is a little bit tailored to the actual harm, right? Further, they concede that appropriate relief in this case would not prevent agencies from terminating people for other reasons. If we have an independent source to fire them, we can. So there is no real redressability here. They say there's some kind of a harm, but the remedy doesn't match the harm. It's way overbroad than the harm. And even if the agencies choose to retain fired employees, that does not mean they're going to be in the same positions. And everything that they're asking for is pure speculation. So if they can establish standing to challenge all of this, right? They say, listen, Supreme Court, this is a real Pandora's box here. If they can just come up with this crap and then sue and challenge thousands of terminations, virtually any nonprofit could show standing to sue virtually any federal employment decision just by pointing to some speculative downstream consequence. Something might happen because you made this change. Anything, right? Oh, Trump hired somebody. Oh, Biden hired somebody. That might impact me in some way. I can sue. Nonprofits supporting the elderly could challenge terminations of administrative law judges on the theory that slower processing time for Social Security would reduce standards. Nonprofits representing travelers could sue the State Department if they fired somebody, if it might reduce passport or visa processing times and cause canceled trips. That's not how Article 3 works. You cannot paper over those flaws by saying, oh, it's just deference. No. And separately, we're going to win because any people who are fired have jurisdiction to sue in another location. Congress specifically set out a comprehensive system for them to file their claims. It's called the CSRA. And that act of Congress, it literally deprives courts of jurisdictions to handle personnel claims. You can't sue them. Sue there. Go sue over there. These courts are to be kept open for other cases. Now, they also say that because they are unions, they're third parties, they say, well, we're not employees. So since we're not employees, we can't sue under that. So we have to go to this court. But they say, but it's the comprehensiveness of this scheme. It precludes other avenues. And the CRSA doesn't prevent the employees. Like, the employees can go sue over there. So just because you can't doesn't mean they can't. So they invoke some other case law, and they're trying to get this case heard. But the people, actually, are not exempted from the CSRA. They're the ones who got fired. Now, at bottom, they're trying to pose to you, Supreme Court, some sort of implausible and illogical scheme whereby Congress literally created their exclusive remedy and they can bypass that. All they have to be is a nonprofit and they have to say we're indirectly affected. And then these judges say, perfect. That's all we need. Anybody, plaintiffs of all stripes, could challenge this anywhere they want. And obviously that cannot be allowed to happen. So ordering the reinstatement of these employees in addition to all of that clearly exceeds their authority, right? The fired employees, if they want a remedy, they can get back pay, they can get damages, they can get wrongful termination, happens all the time. But forcing somebody back into their position of power, there's no power there. This court has rejected, the Supreme Court, reinstatement as an equitable remedy when it involves state officials. But this court has repeatedly recognized that courts of equity lack the power to reinstate even federal officials, right? So state officials, but even federal officials. The court said that the no reinstatement rule is a traditional limit upon equity jurisdiction. We're not going to shove somebody onto a team that the team doesn't want on there. So respondents also cite some other cases. They say, even if those cases were good, that's not applicable here. And so they try to find other sources of power for reinstatement. They say, well, the APA has some law in there. But whatever set aside means, it doesn't mean reinstatement. They try to latch onto that phrase, but that doesn't work. And so they rely on other areas of U.S. code. But all of that is not applicable. Reinstatement is not an appropriate relief under that section. So then they say, well, it's because the firings were bad. So the firings were themselves unlawful. It's not that you're a fired person and now we're going to change you from a fired person into a hired person. It's that you are a fired person and the firing action was unlawful. So we're just reverting the firing action, which would make you a non-fired person because the firing was bad. So it's just like addressing one layer up the chain of causation and calling it something different. They say, well, that would not justify reinstatement as a remedy. Absent statutory authority, a remedy does not exist and the courts may not create one, no matter if they want to. But the government disputed this and the agencies have decided to stand by the terminations. And because OPM never viewed itself as empowered to direct these decisions, the agencies made the firings, right? The OPM didn't make the firings. The OPM made the memo and the recommendations. The agencies made the firings. So the unions dismiss the government's claims of irreparable harm, but we are going to be harmed. If we have to shove 16,000 people back into the federal government, that's going to be a big problem for them. If respondents deny, they deny reinstating full-time employees would inflict harm. It's not a big deal. Just bring them back, they write. But there is irreparable harm, and they haven't explained their irreparable harm. They don't address reinstatement either. And so for the foregoing reasons, their failures to show their harms are not outweighed by our harms. And so for the foregoing reasons, the Supreme Court of the United States should reject what this judge did. Don't make us hire 16,000 people back into the federal government, and do something about it, Supreme Court. And they did. So this thing landed in front of SCOTUS, and you can see there was a bunch of activity. So the original application for a stay was submitted to Justice Kagan. Then a bunch of other people dumped documents in here. American Federation of Government Employees, gag. Santa Clara County, gag. Former government officials, Ty Cobb and others. And I think that's going to be a gag. You get it. Replies and more. And then the Supreme Court came out and issued their decision. And here's what they said. The application for a stay presented to Justice Kagan and by her referred to the court is granted. The March 13th preliminary injunction issued by Judge Alsup of California is stayed pending the disposition of the appeal in the United States Circuit for the Ninth Circuit and a disposition of a writ of certiorari. Now, if cert is denied at the Supreme Court, the stay is terminated. If cert is granted, then it is terminated upon disposition of this court. We've seen that language recently before. Now, here's the explanation. The district court's injunction from Judge Alsup was based solely on the allegations of the 9 nonprofit organization plaintiffs in this case. But under established law, those allegations are presently insufficient to support the organization's standing. How many Trump lawsuits in 2020 did we see dismissed based on standing? Oh gosh, it was like every day. This order does not address the claims of the other plaintiffs, which did not form the basis of the preliminary injunction. So very short order. In other words, these unions have no basis to be in court. Sending that notice back down to the Court of Appeals, who will encourage the lower level judge to dump their claims. So another big victory. Standing. In how many lawsuits here have we seen brought by NGOs, brought by nonprofits, brought by other entities who are bringing claims on behalf of other people? Their contract cancellations, their fired employees. Go sue in your proper venue. Don't dress up your claims and forum shop. So Justice Sotomayor would deny the application. Justice Jackson would have declined to reach the question because she would have let the appeals percolate and work their way through. Okay, Judge Jackson. So another big victory. That is 2 on the day. We saw one come out yesterday and one come out today. Judge William Alsup, who was successful at the Supreme Court the first term, now losing in the second term. Trump's legal team has elevated their game, and we're seeing it play out right now. Now, here's how CNN reported on this when they got the news. They're like, oh, crap. Our friends are not going to come to the event on Friday now.
We start, though, with breaking news at the Supreme Court. It just handed President Trump another win, allowing his administration to fire hundreds of probationary federal workers. I want to get straight to Paula Reed, who was looking through the decision. Paula, what did they say?
So, Dana, this is a significant win for the administration. The 4th one they have notched from the Supreme Court in just the past few days. Here, this decision is focused on thousands of fired probationary federal workers. Now, this decision will allow the government to keep those individuals off the payroll while the larger questions about these firings are litigated.
Now, this was decided not on a constitutional issue or really on the merits. It was decided on something called standing, which is whether the individuals who brought this lawsuit had the right to do so. And here the court says that the 9 nonprofit organizations did not have standing in this case. So again, this is sort of a technical win, but it is still a win for the administration, though it's unclear how this will apply to all fired probationary workers, because a separate judge in Maryland earlier this month ordered a pause and a reinstatement of some employees that are not covered by this case. But I do want to say, Dana, the Justice Department, the Trump administration, they've been waiting for a while for good news from the courts after a string of losses, and they have been getting a lot of good news from the high court over the past few days.
Yeah, because the losses had been coming out from the corrupt courts, from all the blue judges. We've covered a whole boatload of them here on this channel, and you can see a nice list of them here. Blue judges appointed by Democrats. Some of these are not all judges, but lots of judges here that we have covered. And once the cases work themselves up into the Supreme Court, the adults finally come in and settle the children from their bad behavior. So nice reporting from CNN explaining, yeah, it's a nice victory for the president. And the winning continues. Even Harry Enton is reporting that Trump is getting it done out there.
I think there was this concern among some folks that Donald Trump would come in for a second term and kind of be a lame duck. He ain't no lame duck. If anything, he's a soaring eagle. What am I talking about here? Let's talk about Trump executive orders in 2025. He's already signed 111 so far. That is the most at this point in a presidency in at least 100 years. In fact, it's the most in any single year, and we're only in April, since Harry S. Truman in the early 1950s. The bottom line is, whether you like Trump or you don't like him, you can't say that he's come in and not try to deliver on what he at least believes was his promises on the campaign trail, and he's doing so in historic fashion.
How are people reacting to and feel about Trump's approach?
Yeah, okay. So Trump's approach here, what are we talking about? Trump's approach to presidential power. I think the American people recognize what he's doing here is completely different. We're talking, get this, 86% of the American public believes that Trump's approach to presidential power is completely different from past presidents, compared to only 14% who believe it is in line with precedent. And we're talking about at least 79% of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. So again, you can agree or you can disagree with Donald Trump, but what you can't disagree with is that he's doing things very differently. I have used the Frank Sinatra quote before. He is doing it, quote unquote, my way, and that is what Donald Trump has done throughout both of his presidential terms, and he's certainly doing that, Kate Baldwin, in term number 2.
Looking good out there. It is different. And people are recognizing that. I think we've been trying the same thing over and over again my whole life. Joe Biden came in, really accelerated it, and people thought to themselves, you know, this isn't how our country is supposed to be run. And I think it's going to benefit Trump and the Republican Party in America in the long run. And we're going to be here continuing to cover this one. Another victory for the president. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we cover not only what happens next in this case, but all the other cases as well. All right. And so, my friends, if you're just joining us, it has been an amazing stream. 2 major victories today out of SCOTUS that we covered involving these 2 judges. We got Judge Boasberg, who has now gotten told by the Supreme Court saying your TROs are invalid. You have no jurisdiction. You have no power here. Why does he continue to have the case and continue to set deadlines? We will see. But he has now ordered the ACLU gangbang lawyers to respond to this by April 16th, even though the Supreme Court said you have no jurisdiction. And we'll see what comes next. I'm sure they'll file something, and he'll do everything he can to hang on to this because he wants to see Trump held in contempt for not turning those airplanes around when he issued his so-called order to make him come back. So this case is not over yet, and there's good argument that I've seen out there that he's going to hold the contempt charges because they're not related to the underlying case. We'll see what he does on that, or if he tries to thread that needle, but We covered it. We got reaction from Pam Bondi. We heard from Eric Schmidt. We heard from Stephen Miller and some other good folks out there before we changed our gears to talk about Judge William Alsup. Hey, Dustin replied over on Judge Boasberg. I just saw that. We also talked about Judge William Alsup, who is appointed by Bill Clinton, and he just got told by the Supreme Court as well, because he granted a TRO that forced Trump to hire 16,000 people back before the Supreme Court said they have no standing and you have no power here either. If the employees want to go file and sue somewhere else, they can do that, but not here today. So good news there. We read through the reply from the president and the final very short order from the Supreme Court. That will work its way back down into Alsup's courtroom, and we'll see what he does with it next. So it's winning today, my friends. But now it's time to hear from you, and we'll see what you say about all of this. I saw some great donos, some great comments. I see we've got some new membos who are joining us. Welcome aboard, our newest of friends. Thanks for becoming a membo. If you haven't become a membo, we do great members-only streams. We'll be back tomorrow with the members-only stream, 12 noon Eastern in the morning, and 12 noon is not in the morning. It's in the morning for us. Hey, what's going on? We got this morning we were talking about getting so jacked, muscles, with muscles, that we were not going to have any necks because our traps are going to be so jacked up. We don't have any necks. And that's what somebody, it's not exactly what I was talking about, but it's true. He has no neck. We did not skip leg day. We got it done today. We did squats. We did some dumbbell deadlifts, like some Jefferson curls for that lower back. Did some leg extensions, some leg curls, some calf raises, leg press. Not too heavy because your boy's back's a little tight, but we got it done. What's up, Carl Wendell? Hey, Carl, thanks for becoming a membo. We'll see you tomorrow on the membo stream. Grab the stream from this morning. It was a ton of fun. Jeff Hopper, you too. Kitty Rogers, great to see you. Welcome, Jeff and Kitty. See you tomorrow. This one came in from Chubby. What's up, Chubby Stubby on Locals? Says, I am really, really hoping Boasberg decides not to drop the case. Just removes one part of it and tries to maintain control and gets smacked down again even harder by SCOTUS. He may try to keep this contempt thing going. And we'll see what SCOTUS does. Like, how do you keep contempt if you didn't have jurisdiction in the first place? And Trump made that argument very clear. No authority. Thank you, Chubby. We'll see. Hey, Tanya Arthur, thanks for becoming a supporter. And all hail Tarpon Springs Tyrants. We got Tanya and All Hail joining us. Thank you both for becoming supporters, supporting our work. We'll see you in the morning. And grab the stream from this morning. It was a lot of fun. Hey, Gist122, 3 months as a membo, 1/3 of the way to a baby, says 6 more months to a full baby. And it goes fast and pops out of nowhere. Trust me. Says, love the show. Thank you, Gist, for being here for 3 months. First month's the hardest. First trimester's the hardest. Gets easier from there. Hey, Tanya Karras is here. Oh, look at this one. Yeah, this looks great. Happy Taco Tuesday, my friends. It's cheesy ham and potato bake. Roasted asparagus and peach cobbler. Enjoy the day. Okay, that's a challenge. Normally when we get these menu items, we see if we can convert them into tacos to comply with Taco Tuesday traditions. I think you have to take the ham, fold up the ham, put the potato bake in there, asparagus on top like you'd put grated cheese with a little doppel of peach cobbler. There's your taco. Done. Thank you, Tanya. Hey, Rick Donner. What's up, Rick D? LOL, President Trump is throwing fire again. Here's one about sloppy JB, PB, and J Pritzker. Oh, Trump. Sloppy JB Pritzker, the rotund governor from the once great state of Illinois, who makes Chris Christie look like a male model and whose family wanted him out of the business because he was so pathetic at helping them run it, has presided over the destruction and disintegration of Illinois at levels never seen before in any state. Crime is rampant, and people are sadly fleeing Illinois. Unless a change is made at the governor's level, Illinois can never be great again. He is rotund, and not like a rotunda in the government, although he could fit in the rotunda, probably. Yeah, he is rotund, no doubt. Hey, Mark Massingill. What's up, Mark? Thank you, Mark Massingill, for becoming a member. We'll see you in the morning on the Membo stream. Doan, what's up, Doan Burrill? Hey, pretty sure that Jeb, the judge, just fell for the same impeachment trap that he set for Trump. Hubris is a hell of a drug. Yeah, we'll see what this judge does, right? If he continues to act without jurisdiction, I don't know. It feels kind of like he's insurrecting the judiciary and he's acting outside of the law. Maybe he could be charged with a high crime or misdemeanor for that one. Maybe Congress can do something about it. This old guy says, okay, that's it. We are certain that Boasberg is suffering from Biden brain. Time for him to retire, too. Yeah, he's going to hang on for dear life because he's got a new purpose now, because he's mad that the conservatives talked about his wife and daughter and his corruption and their Democrat family. Got it. This old guy, thank you for that. Yeah, what's up? James Marino became a supporter. Good to see you, James. Grab the show from this morning, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning. G-Men says they're basically trying to say their tattoos do not matter. No, it's just a cool thing he saw on Google one time. Yeah, okay. If that is the case, why does every jail photograph every tattoo you have upon intake? I doubt it's only for ID purposes. I always thought it was also to determine gang affiliations. Well, yeah, and then these gangs are very heavily into tattoos, right? And that's basically how Nayib cleaned up all of El Salvador. But then all of a sudden, there are electricians who just saw something cool on Google. Got it. After they broke into our country illegally. Sure. What's up? Sheila Poo says Amy Coney Barrett is a huge disappointment. Yeah. She is as liberal as they come. Illegal aliens have no due process rights except in their home country. Go get it down there. They are not our citizens, and therefore they have no rights here. From Sheila Poo in the house. Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett is very, it seems favorable towards a lot of those issues. Good to see you, Sheila Poo. Thank you for the nice dono. We got Quad Cam is here, says, apparently Trump is going to start fining illegal aliens $988 a day who don't self-deport. Yeah, that's a good start. Says Trump plans to fine migrants $9,898 a day if you fail to leave. That was a document obtained by Reuters. Yeah, that's good. Add it up. Add it up. Send them an invoice. No doubt. Let's see what's coming up next. We got this one. This one from Rick D. Says, this woman worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign. Wow. Lauren Young. Wow, that's an interesting one. Rick D shared a post from somebody who was allegedly pointing to take out Trump. Not good, Rick D, not good. Mama Mima. How is Trump in contempt when the judge was found to have no jurisdiction to even issue the order? Trump in contempt of an order unlawfully made? Weird. Yeah, that's weird. We'll see what the judge says about it. But yeah, no, he's going to give the ACLU gangbang lawyers some more time to figure out if they can come up with some other claim. And then he'll hold on to the contempt evidence, and we'll see what he does. Sammy Bateman, what's up, Sammy? Thank you for becoming a membo and joining up. We'll see you in the morning. We appreciate that. Doan, Rob, you were right about Pam needing to stop feeding the left with the administrative error, mea culpa, regarding Kilmar today. Tough crap, okay? He's gone. Yeah, we listened to, I think, a little bit of that Pam Bondi clip this morning on the Membo stream. Get a little bit, it's like Pam and Tom maybe there was an administrative error, but you don't need to talk about that, right? It's just PR. Just like leave that out of your vocabulary, just as a default rule, even if it did happen. Instead, default to the positive things that did happen. So every time they come out and they say, he got due process, what are you talking about? He saw a judge in 2019. A judge listened to his claims, asked him to provide evidence that he could give us to rebut any claims that he's Tren de Aragua. There were inconsistencies in his statement. He saw a judge, and the judge said, not bondable, not believable. Evidence in a court that was presented to a judge said, we're not letting him out. There's your due process. And if you want more, he then took that case and appealed it and lost that case. So that's 2 due process proceedings. Thanks for the question. He's an El Salvadorian citizen. He should be home with his people, and that's where he is. And if they want to deal with him differently, they can, but he was an illegal in our country, and he's no longer here. So he can complain to El Salvador that he should be released from custody down there since he's a citizen there. Sharpie guy, Rob, is the background noise legal? It shouldn't be. All background noise should be illegal for interfering with our experience. Thank you, Sharpie guy. Ray Ronk says, did you see that Pencil Neck Schiff is now leading an alternative shadow government? What? Their, quote, hearings are being carried on C-SPAN. No, I didn't see that at all. But you're talking about the guy who got censured, Pencil Neck Adam Schiff. Yeah. I'm sure they're indulging it. They have a lot of fantasies that they like to partake in. What's up? Steel Manning says, at what point can these judges be arrested? Well, when they commit a crime and somebody finds probable cause of evidence to conduct that arrest. So it might be a while. And somebody with the stones to do it. So it might be a while. Hey, I'm an American man. What's up? On set, thanks for the dono. I'm an American man. I appreciate that. Thanks for being here. And thanks for being a membo. This one came in from Uncle Bozy on Locals. Says Homeland Security just revoked legal status for 985,000 migrants who entered the U.S. via Biden's CBP app from Just the News. Yeah, 1 million people. Wow. Who got door dashed into America using the Uber Invasion app. We just want an Uber airplane for illegals. Oh, perfect. Yeah, here you go. It'll be here in 45 minutes. Like, wow. Muy bien. Muy bien. Let's go. Amazing. Uncle Bozy, thanks. That's going to be a fun one. Lawsuits already getting filed right now. Alan Harkin. Alan, so generous as always, my friend. Look at this nice, thick dono. We appreciate it, Alan. Nice one. Says, excellent, informative take on the latest awesome news. Finally from the Supreme Court. Yeah, it was really good. Hey, without fail, you bring truthful, easy to understand, fun takes on the day. You are appreciated by us all. Alan, I appreciate that, man. Thanks for being so generous and coming by, watching on Rumbles, and sending in a nice, big, fat, thick, girthy dono. Exactly. Girthy indeed. We appreciate it. And it's a good one. And it's very much appreciated. And your boy's just a humble document reader. We're just navigating this stuff together. We appreciate it, Alan. Thanks again. What's up? One old guy's opinion says, wow, many inferior district court judges being told, go eat it because y'all inferior district courts and plaintiffs are illegally filing claims. That's basically what they got told, no doubt. Good to see you, one old guy. Thank you for that one. Hey, Mr. Pastilio says, as long as there is some process there, I am happy. I thought people who filed habeas were known they were targets and did it beforehand. My hangup was I thought if I was taken by mistake, I would have no notice to file. Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that's right. And that would be a problem. Like, we don't want to be Edmond Dantes thrown in the Chateau Reef. I think that's the name of it. I should probably look that up if I'm going to keep referencing it. But we don't want that to happen. But they clearly had notice. They sued. And there was due process. It's just a matter of degree, right? How much process did each of these people get? If you're on the left, you want to hire them lawyers, you want multiple judges, you want appeals, you want them to be housed in America while these appeals exhaust themselves. You want the public to pay for it all, like everything. Our perspective is different. They broke the laws entering the country. They can go file from outside of the country as long as we can confirm. Like, you want to make sure that they're not a citizen, by the way. Like, there should be some process there. You're absolutely not a citizen for sure. All right, if you are, like, let me know, because the plane is taken off. Any citizens here? Give me any document, anything. Let me know. Somebody says I might be a citizen. Okay, pull them off the plane. Double check that guy. You're not a citizen. Get back on there. Nice try there. But right, we do want some due process, but it's not what the Democrats call due process, which would be lawyers and little red carpets and first-class deportations. What's up? One old guy says, blondie lefty CNN presenter looks like someone urinated in her Cheerios this morning. The dude is very happy to make her look that way with his segment. Yeah, that was the Harry Enton segment. She was like, and tell me what else Americans are saying, Harry. He's like, yeah, Trump's crushing. He's soaring eagle. Oh. You're like, okay, she's miserable. Just let her be miserable. Hey, Doan. Hey, thanks. Lots of winning today, Rob. Good coverage on both shows. Thank you, Doan. Yeah, Doan. We had a good one this morning, too. This morning. Yeah, the Membo stream. We talked about Ryan Ruth. We did the whole Ryan Ruth Trump assassin segment today. It was fun. We'll publish that later. Peaches. Why does Trump need to even entertain these woke judges since they don't have jurisdiction? Well, we're getting close to that now. Right? Now, if this judge holds Trump in contempt, he's going to say, you have no jurisdiction. Your orders are meaningless. So, judge, hold me in contempt. I have a Supreme Court decision that says you have no jurisdiction over the case. So your little contempt garbage is meaningless to me. It means nothing. So maybe the judge won't do that because that's what Trump's response will be. And he'll say, I'm not going to hold you in contempt as like he'll scold him, but I'm not going to hold you in contempt because he knows it won't have any teeth. Or maybe he does. Hey, Jennifer says, you look great in plum and dark blue too, but red is the best. Well, red is the best. Yeah, I mean, it really brings out my love of America out of my eyes, doesn't it, Jennifer? Thank you, Jennifer. No Name is here. How do the SCOTUS rulings related to the Department of Education grants and the recent SCOTUS findings affect the EPA grants in Tanya Chutkan's courtroom? The EPA stuff, is that in Tanya's courtroom? I thought let's see. Do we have a Chutkan file? We do have a Chutkan file. Let's see. What do we have on Chutkan? What case did she have? Yeah, I thought the one that we were covering from her was the Doge case. And they lost that, right? This was the one brought by the states. I think they appealed it. They wanted discovery, and that discovery order was stayed. Here's our Chutkan file. Yeah, so I don't remember. Maybe it's another case that maybe she got another case that's the EPA, but I don't recall if there is. But the point is, like, the Supreme Court is laying down guideposts and other rules that these other judges can follow, but not one of them is like, unilaterally setting a blanket order. They're addressing each of the cases specifically. Good to see you, No Name. What's going on? Deluxe Night. Deluxe Night in the house. Hey, all this winning is freaking awesome today. Thank you, Rob, and for putting out there for all of us. Hey, Deluxe Night, man. I appreciate you being here. Deluxe Night is one of our farmer extraordinaires, and he was planting peas, I think, on Monday. So I hope the peas are out there being excellent. Object Class Keeter says the judge forces the AP to be let back into the White House. I saw that as we were sitting down. That's going to be a fun one. So the AP was banned from the Oval Office, and the judge said, you can't do that. That's viewpoint discrimination. How dare you? We'll talk about it. Sammy Girl, 1 month, Sammy. First month's the hardest, gets easier from there. Holy smokes, a month already. Y'all are awesome. We appreciate you, Sammy Girl. Thanks for saying that and for being a membo here. We're glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully we see you for many more. We've got Michelle Heim. What's up, Michelle? Says Trump's running the country like a businessman. I predict reinstatement of Remain in Mexico. Mexico sending them to CCOT under their national security, and Congress creating a conveyor belt. Docs check courts for 14 and over folks. Just doc checks. Citizen? Nope, gone. Okay, gone. Just very quick. It's due process, but it's due process for illegals who are in our country illegally. It's not the due process the Democrats would otherwise envision. And Michelle, I think we played a clip this morning on the Membo stream. You may have seen it, or maybe it was yesterday. Trump was on the airplane, and he almost said company. He's like, man, when we inherited this country, like Trump caught himself. He's like, this country was almost bankrupt. I was like, So I think you're right about it. He's thinking of it in those terms about with trade and basically procurement, right, of imports and things. It's interesting. It's been fun. What's up, Michelle? I think it's going to be better for the country. Here's one from one old guy. Says, if Boasberg, the love child of Norman Bates and Skeletor, tries to continue to get contempt, Congress will have added solid evidence of national security violations and partisanism for impeachment. Yeah, well, and it will just look partisan as hell because he doesn't have jurisdiction. So you're going to hold him in contempt when you have no jurisdiction? Let's see. Hey, ... Says, Rob, answer to yesterday's question on how many children Genghis Khan had. 9 officially, but published in the American Journal of Human Genetics, The Genetic Legacy of the Mongols, found that 0.5% of the world's male population were Khan's genetic descendants, and that 8% of men living in his former territory had identical Y chromosomes. So that is 16 million men alive today. Impressive. Yeah, those are impressive numbers. Going to be hard to beat those numbers, I think. ... All right. Anyways, good details. Thanks for that. That's a lot of babies. Hey, Venus Gonzalez. Thank you, Venus. Says, if you believe in seeking truth, like this video, comment on this video, share it, subscribe, turn on the post notifications, and share it to all your friends and family and your social media platforms. Blast it out all across the interwebs. If you believe in seeking truth. But if you like lies and dishonesty and darkness, and you hate me, then don't do that. What's up? Thank you, Venus, for that. Hey, it's Jake. Oh, it's Jake Sullivan, Biden's former NSA. He's over on our locals now. He joined up on locals. He says, Rob, Jake Sullivan, he went to Oxford. Remember him? He used to work there. He wrecked most of the global balance of power. Hey, Rob, wanted to say thank you to everyone that has not liked this video on YouTube. Those people are my followers, and the attached image is for them. Okay, be careful here. Let me just double check this. All right. Gosh. Gotta be careful. Says, those people are my followers, and the attached image is for them. They love Nancy. So again, to all my Democrat brother and sister followers that refuse to hit the like button, this Nancy is for you. Okay. So if you don't like this video, then by process of elimination, you like this photo. Those are the rules. I didn't set them. Jake Sullivan did, and he went to Oxford. Hey, Deluxe Knight. Look at this, man. Farming like a madman. Says 12 rows, 18 acres an hour, no hands like a Tesla. Does it do it itself or do you use your knee? 10 acres to finish planting that Independence Day sweet corn. Look at this, man. This is one of our farmer extraordinaires. Deluxe Knight in the house. Man, he's planting peas out there. Peas for days. Man, we love our farmers. They feed us, keep us nice and healthy. Shout out to Deluxe Knight, man. That sounds like a lot of farming. Look at that equipment too. Awesome. Good to see you, Deluxe Knight. Thanks for feeding us. Hey, Milo Phone Bill. Happy Papusa Tuesday. Well, we have to decide what Papusa Day it is because we got Taco Tuesday. So maybe it's like Papusa Friday. We want to do Papusa Friday. Was Kilmar's mom really persecuted for making pupusas, which are stuffed tacos, El Salvador's national dish? It's hard to believe. Yeah, no, she was. Their business was under attack from the El Salvadorian gangs who didn't like that they were taking over the street corners with their pupusa business. And so he had to flee to America and leave his mom behind because the gangs were taking him out. I don't know. Hey, G-Man says, I think people believe due process means some grandiose trial, when in reality, it is only the process that is due to you under the law. Yeah, it's like you treat everybody the same. There is something that happens, but it differs depending on what law we're discussing, right? Criminal versus deportation, etc. Yeah, and the analogy yesterday was when you get a DUI, you get 2 types of due process. One, before they put you in jail, you get a criminal trial or you take a plea. Other, before they suspend your license, you get civil due process, which is just a basic hearing, an ALJ hearing, which is nothing. because your license is a different liberty interest than jail. Okay, driving is a privilege, not a right. So they take that away, and in order to take it away, the due process that you are afforded for that right is minimal. Just short hearing with a cop who just comes in, says whatever. Very limited evidence, hearsay is all admissible, all the things. So it depends. And if you're not a citizen and you've broken the law, you suddenly turn around and you're like, I want a lawyer appointed for me. Get out of here. Chat with me says, there's 115 people on locals and only 45 likes over there for all this hard work. Thank you, Chat with me, for scolding the chat on my behalf. Appreciate that. And I do appreciate the likes. Hey, it's Bruce Rice Baby. Dun 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 dun. Check it. Bruce Rice Baby. Dun 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 dun. We got Bruce Rice. What's up? Look at this. 50 membos coming in, baby. Let's welcome them in. We got huge friends coming in. Thank you, courtesy of Bruce Rice Baby. What's up? Retired 5-0. What's up, Guitar Man? Hangman 420. Karen O, Henry G, we got Jimmy Baker, Carol Morrison, what's up, Greg Erickson? We got Dog Backwards is God, Mike Sue, Tina Childers, Frank Williams, Karen Bush, what's up, Joel Rays? Jen McDavid is here. We got Julia Arnold, aka Grandma Goo, is here. What's up, Grandma? Relaxing and Restful, Sam E, we got Kitchen Mortician, William Lyons, B-Dubs in the house, Kid Seville, AF 5WO, aka Field Boss is here. Dale Davis, what's up, Sue Nami? Jesus Freak is here. We got Charles Schwartz. Says, many friends have come from Bongino. What's up, Bruce Rice? Shout out to our Bongino friends. Good to see you guys. What's up, Kat McC? CV Grady, Renee S is here. We got Nutter, Steve Lauder, Aussie Nan, Michael LeValley, Brian Howell, Wrestlertown. We got Black Horse Cavalry, Calbo Dave, Gizmo.net. What's up, Brian Bentley, Shirley Watts, Dissident Porcupine, William Selman, J.H. Schwalbach, Deep Surface is here, Ricky D. We got Carlton Van Noy and Top of Mind gifted membos, courtesy of Bruce Rice Baby. Dun, 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 dun. What's up, Bruce? Thank you for that. 50 new friends. Welcome aboard. Grab the stream from this morning, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Courtesy of Bruce. Thank you, Bruce, for that. And welcome, new friends. Former says, you know, rotund is a great word. During my oral interview with the San Francisco Police Department, they wrote in the analysis that the department should be cautious in hiring a rotund officer due to the fact that they might be susceptible to bribery in the form of free meals. It's true. Smart. I like the analysis so much. After I found out what the definition of rotund was, I got my personalized license plates on my Chevrolet Suburban, and it made them crazy because I called myself Rotund. You put Rotund on your license plate? That's hilarious. Did you get any free meals after you did that? All these criminals are coming up to you on the streets of San Francisco. They're like, hey, man, you want this burrito? You're a cop. Hey, chunky cop, you want this burrito? You rotund cop? Is that what happened? I don't know. Sounds like it could be a problem out there. Maybe you got some good food, though. I don't know. San Francisco, can have some good cuisine when you're hopscotching in between the defecation. Don, what's up? Don Goff in the house. 5 membos gifted. What's up, Django Geek? We got No Name in the house. We got William Meyer, William Shawley, and JG got gifted a membo. Good to see you, JG. Welcome aboard, Don Goff. Thanks for bringing in a bunch of new friends. Hey, Peaches is here. What's up, Peaches? Says, I'm a veteran. Thank you, Peaches, for your service. And watching the last 4 years has been depressing. But you were making this all so fun to watch and understand. Thank you, and God bless. God bless you, Peaches. Peaches, thank you for that. What a nice comment. And thanks for serving our country. We appreciate you. Yeah, the last 4 years was tough. It was tough. I was thinking back about that. I'm like, man, it was just a whirlwind. And with COVID on the back of it, and with the Democrats trying to ruin our country, like actively, it was rough. It was rough. But we got through it together, Peaches, and it's been a real honor, and it's great to be on the side that is actually building and doing something useful for once. It's good to be there. Thank you, Peaches, for being here. Henry K says, I need eye bleach. Oh yeah, it's probably from that Nancy Pelosi image, wasn't it? Well, that was the sanitized version. Okay, I think at one other point we actually played like the real clip here. I don't know why I did that. I must have just been on something or something off that day. I don't know, but yeah, I think probably several of us are still going through therapy after. That was the Nancy Pelosi photo on the beach with her jugs hanging out. Remember that? Oh my goodness. Chuck Schumer was like, okay, we'll stop. Henry K, what's up? I need eye bleach. Yeah. That was the PG version. Hey, Relantel in the house. What's up? Rel in the house. Lego dude. What's up, Rel? Relantel. Bringing in 5 membos. Thank you, Relantel, for doing it. What's up? Liza Jean Williams. Welcome. Chris Sawyer's in the house. We got Stephen Farrington. Welcome. My Bet is here. And Augustus Tiberius gifted membos, courtesy of Relantel. We appreciate it, Relantel. Thanks for bringing them in. Peaches says, are illegals covered under the Constitution? Isn't that only for Americans? Are they even supposed to have due process? Yeah, so they are, like, the Constitution applies to how we govern ourselves and how we operate the law. So the aspects of the Constitution apply to illegals in as so far as their status as an illegal is covered under the Constitution. So they do have, yes, it does apply to them. There are, debates about how much of it applies and in what capacity it applies, what rights and privileges they have. But yeah, you can't murder an illegal alien, right? Like, they have got due process rights against being murdered, even if they're in our country. So, the law applies, right? All of the laws apply. It's just to what capacity. And I think the real rub on the word is about due process and what that specifically affords them, and where the lines are drawn, and what is that due process? What is it specifically? Should it be a trial? Should they be afforded the same rights and privileges of a citizen? If you're a citizen and you're indigent, we'll give you a lawyer. We'll appoint you a lawyer because we want you to have the presumption of innocence and a fair trial in a jury with your peers, with lots of discovery and lots of time and the right to a speedy trial and those things. And if an illegal comes in and is charged with a crime, they're going to get those same things. It's due process of the law. And part of due process is to make sure that the outcome at the other end is legitimate, right? So that we're not just incarcerating and convicting people no matter what. So if an illegal comes in and is charged with a crime, they're going to get all the criminal due process in the world. They're going to get a hearing and all the things. But what they're trying to do, and we even played the clip earlier, is they're trying to conflate these things. They're trying to say that deportation is analogous to charging somebody with a crime, and that a deportation proceeding, in essence, should be the equivalent. And I think what you're hinting at is that's not right at all. They're not in the country lawfully, so why should they get the due process rights that you would expect in a criminal trial? And the media is asking questions about that to Pam, saying, well, they weren't convicted of anything, so why are they being deported, right? That's not the standard. They're moving the goalpost around and basically trying to confuse everybody. So they did get due process. They got plenty of due process. They said, are you a citizen? No, you're not? Great, you're deported. That was plenty of, do you have any lawful basis to be here? No. Great, you're deported. That's all the due process that they're entitled to. Constitution applies, but that is the level of due process that, in my opinion, they should be afforded. And if they think they're wrongfully detained, file habeas. So the Constitution, it does apply to illegals and it really to everybody, but it's about how the law is operating and what claims are being made and brought under the Constitution that affords it remedy and redress. What is can the Constitution grant you a remedy? Or should it? No. So it's a great question, Peaches. And it is complicated because it's like inverse, and then they conflate everything. They say it's all the same thing, but it's not. Husky Mom! Oh, we got a pup in the house. What a beautiful pup. Look at this one. Says, hey, happy birthday. 12 years old for this pup. This handsome huck called Alley Pal. Altar, a.k.a. Alley Pal. Man, that's a heck of a name there. Husky Mom indeed. Good to see you, Husky Mom. Happy birthday to Alley Pal. Beautiful boy in the house. Peaches says, this reminds me of my deployments where we have to abide by LOAC, but the other side never does. It's unfair. We are limiting our own military and giving an unfair advantage to terrorists. Yeah, and war is a whole different game. Yeah, that's a whole different ball game. But yeah, it is interesting. And this is the empathy exploit that we talk about, right? Foreign countries have exploited Americans' empathy for my whole life. Well, Rob, you don't want the kids to not get educated. They're just kids. They didn't come here illegally. Their parents brought them here illegally. Well, okay. Or Reagan. Well, we're only going to do it this one time. It's only going to be a few million, and then we're going to fix the problem. Okay, fine. We'll absorb it. We'll just let it happen. Fine. Yes, we want our schools. Fine. We're not going to let them bleed out in the street so they can go into the ER. Fine. And meanwhile, they're exploiting it, and our country is being hollowed out. Well, not anymore. Rick D says, more shenanigans uncovered. Looks like a Timothy Tebow email. That looks like a good one. Thank you, Rick D, for flagging that one for us. More emails being released. Looks scandalous. Thank you, Rick, for that one and for the dono and for flagging it. What's going on, my friends? Let's say hello to our friends on X and see what's happening on X before we wrap it up. We're heading over to locals. We'll debrief for a little bit over there. And we'll see who is joining us. Be Torn. Yeah, I saw that. Be Torn. Well, this is a nice kitty. Here's a nice kitty from George. Says, your show is like catnip, Rob. Catnip. That cat is cracked out on catnip for sure. What's up, George? Muriel says, this sounds like the judge is asking, saying, hey, sorry about the SCOTUS decision. Is there anything else I can help you with, ACLU? Let me know by April 16th or whatever the date was. Yeah, is there anything else? Would you like fries with that? Anything else I can get you before we close this out today? Captain Dab says, the DNC is a communist party. Here's President Trump. What a wonderful day from President Trump. What a wonderful day. Good to see you, Captain Dabs. Thanks for the comment. George says, what a scam. Jody says, hey, great show, Rob, as always. Would you rather have your papoosha or your TRO exposed? What kind of a question is that? Your papoosha or your TRO exposed? This is a great question. Do I even have a papoosha? I don't think I have a papoosha. I was thinking that I don't have a papoosha. I was interpreting it as a female because it has the A for A, like a papoosha. Not a papuso, you know? So I don't know. I'm not familiar with papusos, I don't know. But I might have an injunction. I don't know. I think that's a little bit more masculine, you know? Hey, Richard Tatership, what's up? Say, hey, good times here. Yeah, it was fun. TJ says, well, it must really be a big problem to get obliterated twice out of the Supreme Court. Yeah, they're losing today. They're not having a good one. Hey, Christina. Good to see you. Phil Reno. Talking about the shadow government situation. I haven't seen that with Pencil Neck. So good stuff. Richard Tatership. TJ, good to see you. Satellite Boy. What Bondi is saying about people coming across and essentially creating a new identity needs to be talked about. Agents need to tell their stories about what Biden was instructing them to do. Yeah, it was a ransacking of our whole country, and it was sick to watch. Great stuff. Good to see everybody on X. Rob is on Rumble, says, hey, but if they are declared terrorists or if we declared war on invaders, could something change? I think if you're in an active conflict, right, like if you're in a war, but like as it stands now, like, no, you're not allowed to just go take them out, right? You're not deputized to go prosecute terrorists. But if you're in a mall and they're shooting at you, that's a separate story. That's just self-defense. So great question, Rob. Don't go taking out terrorists unless you're law enforcement. All right. All right. So my friends, great comments. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Thank you for the fun chat and the donos, and welcome to new membos. Thanks to everybody who brought in our new membo friends. Grab the stream from this morning. We did Ryan Ruth stuff this morning. I think we covered 3 filings in that case. One was wild, classified, ultra classified filing. Ryan Ruth was also trying to buy surface-to-air missiles to take out the president. And it was a doozy of a filing. So we covered that this morning. We will have a segment on that out later. But we'd love it if you became a member on YouTube or on Locals. We're coming back for our membos on the stream in the morning, 12 noon Eastern. We'd love to see you there. But if we don't see you there, well, we are coming back here tomorrow, and we're going to get into it again. Before we round it out, we want to thank our mods and our meme smiths. K-Bean in the house, Donut Mind Me, Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek. Modding the fort down for us, keeping things so beautiful, so nice, and so orderly around here, and we appreciate it. But my friends, that is it for us on the day. We're going over to Locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members-only after party. If you'd like to join us over there, come hang out. Otherwise, members, we're back in the morning for the Membo stream, and then the show back at the regular time. And my friends, we are coming back to get into it again. Snooch just sent this one out. How much does someone need for a shout out? Snooch, you just nailed it. Shout out to Snooch in the house. Extra shout out, Snooch. And Jeremiah Greger. Thanks, Jeremiah, for becoming a supporter. Good to see you both as we round it out. And thanks for supporting us here at the end. My friends, that's where we're going to leave it on the day. We're coming back tomorrow. And we're going to get into it again. And in order to do it appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.